Good morning, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and a good night. I am Patrick. This is Storytelling Imperfectly, and welcome back to the channel. But if you're new to the channel, I am Patrick, and I hope you like what you see. Guys, the story we're going in today and talking about is not a missing persons case, although I love those every once in a while. It's nice to take a break. Talking about some of the worst things you could possibly imagine: missing kids, missing people, loved ones of others who are never found. And that gets a little bleak. Today, I'm going to talk about something a little different. It's a mystery, dates all the way back to World War II. And it might possibly be one of the very first incidences of the Matrix glitching, if we're living in a Matrix. Stick around. It's story time. On November 23rd, 1943, the United States had now been involved in World War II for about 2.5 years. However, Britain and other allied nations had been fighting Germany all the way back to like 1936. So we weren't there that long at this point in time. But something that had happened during this point in time for the U.S. military, regardless of the length of time that we were involved in World War II, is that we had advanced our weapons of war to a technological level that could compete with Germany. Because, let's be honest, for the first few years of the war, Germany, they were kicking butt and taking names. And it was because of their technological advances. They had super smart scientists who unfortunately were using their super science brains to create awesome weapons of war, including even working on jet engines and rockets that had guidance, things that were so far advanced that we use them today. No, World War II, again, crazy technological advances. And amongst these were aircraft. You see, the United States didn't have an Air Force at this point in time. They had the Army Air Corps. And the Air Force was established because of World War II. But it didn't stop the fact that some of the planes that we had were true machines of war and very good at doing what they were designed to do. And amongst these were the B-24 and the B-25, which were amazing aircraft but had a lot of flaws. But towards the end of the war, by 43, the United States had introduced a new aircraft to the game. And it was the B-17 Flying Fortress. Now, if you know anything about the B-17 Flying Fortress, guys, it is a heck of an aircraft for its time period. It was designed to be able to take a tremendous amount of damage and still stay airborne. And that's important for bombers in World War I, because when they went on their bombing runs and they flew, they couldn't deviate. They couldn't dodge. They had to stay on course. And that meant flying under tremendous enemy fire at times. And if you got hit, the last thing you want to do is crash. I mean, who wants that? Like, I'm going to wake up this morning. You know what I hope happens today, Bob? Oh, what's that, Earl? Well, I hope we get shot down. I don't think that was ever mentioned once during World War II. And the B-17 was designed to stop that from happening in a lot of ways. It had 4 propellers, and it had a crew of 10. And this particular incident that I'm talking about, guys, actually is about a B-17. And so in Kortenberg, Belgium, in 1943, it was November the 23rd, and the men on duty that day saw a B-17 coming in. They didn't think anything of it at first, but then they realized that this B-17 hadn't called in. It shouldn't have been there. And more importantly, there weren't any B-17s in the area that they knew of. However, this was a British base. The B-17 was an American aircraft. And so then suspicion and wariness suddenly dawned on these guys. This could be a German sneak attack of some sort, because the Germans were not beyond using sneaky tactics, just like anybody else in war. And so the idea that maybe Germany had captured a B-17 and was flying it in was very real. And so as they watched this B-17 coming in, suddenly its landing gear was down and it looked in perfect condition. As it came in, one of the wings dipped down and hit the ground, causing it to bounce hard. But nonetheless, about 90 feet before it ran into a gun emplacement, it came to a stop. Although the engines didn't shut off, the propellers kept going. One propeller did crumple in on itself, but that was the only damage that seemed to happen, and that happened because the wing dipped and it crashed into the ground when it landed. So they watched. These British soldiers were kind of like, what's going on? And no crew disembarked the aircraft. So they waited, and then they called their superior. Now, the superior on duty, the commanding officer on duty that day when this plane landed, was a man named Major John V. Crisp. And he came out, and he's looking, and for about 20 minutes, these guys waited to see if any soldiers or airmen came out of this B-17, but nobody did. The engines were running. It was just sitting there. They tried to raise it up on communications, but nobody would answer. So with lots of trepidation, Major Crisp and a couple of other soldiers boarded this B-17. And on board, they found truly mysterious things. One, the pilot's jackets. You know, the iconic airman jacket. You know, that brown leather with the wool collar. They were all in there. So these men had not been wearing their jackets. Now, the thing about a B-17 and all aircraft during World War II, guys, is they weren't heated. Okay, it wasn't a comfy ride. And you would go up into very high elevations and it would get super cold. So for these men not to be wearing their coats, wherever the crew was, because the plane was completely empty, is part of the mystery. Also, as he looked around the plane, he went into the cockpit. And there's the captain's log, and he's flipping all the levers, because Major Crisp didn't know how to fly a B-17. He just wanted to turn off the engines. And he succeeded. After a few lever switches and flipping and, probably some cussing, he finally got it turned off. But when he checked the captain's log, it stated that the aircraft was heavily damaged and that the crew badly injured and that he had ordered them to bail out. But here's a mystery that just goes even further, is that upon inspecting the plane, Major Crisp found 12 parachutes, neatly packed, ready to clip on, but no crew. He inspected more of the vehicle. He went to where the navigator sat, and there was the navigator's log. And logged in was the last thing it said was bad flak. Now, if you don't know what that means, guys, flak occurs when an anti-aircraft gun is shooting at an airplane and it explodes outside the airplane. You'll see these black puffs of smoke, but it's quite a violent thing, especially if you're in the aircraft. Not only will it jar and shake the aircraft if the explosion happens close by, but pieces of metal will shoot off and come through the plane. Almost like your finger through a piece of tinfoil. It's not that these sharp pieces of metal were super dangerous. So when it says bad flak, they're looking around the aircraft and it looks like it's completely sound. It doesn't look badly damaged at all. So Major Crisp really didn't know what to do. On top of all this, to add to the mystery, was their code books were in there. Now, these are top secret, guys. The pilots, nobody took this when they bailed out. They left their code books. They left this top secret things that if Germany had captured that aircraft and gotten a hold of, would have been ultra valuable intel for the enemy. Then on top of all of this, he goes into the Pyrex front, because like I said, there's 10 crew members and there is a front gunner who sits in the nose. It's like a Pyrex glass nose of the aircraft. Then there's a top gunner, 2 side gunners, a tail gunner, the pilot, the co-pilot, the bombardier and navigator, and radio man, right? So when he went into the Pyrex nose of this B-17, he saw their Sperry, it's called a Sperry, S-P-E-R-R-Y, Sperry sights, which was their bombing sights. And again, it was left. None of this stuff should have been left. It should have at least been destroyed or taken with them. Because if the enemy caught them, or captured the aircraft, it would have been detrimental to the Allied air operations in France, Italy, Germany, and anywhere in between. So Major Crisp really had a lot of questions that needed to be answered. And so what he did was he contacted the 8th U.S. Air Corps at the time, who was nearby, and said, hey, we have one of your B-17s here, and it's completely empty, and it doesn't look to be damaged. The only damage that it looks to have is one propeller is now crushed, but it's because it landed rough. And so the 8th Air Corps said, well, we'll send out some guys. And they did, and they investigated. And they got, for lack of a better term, they got a serial number, a VIN number, if you will, off of the aircraft. And it was attached to the 91st Air Brigade, or Air Squadron, which is in East England. So not too far away. Even though it was across the channel from Belgium, it wasn't that far away. And when they contacted the 91st Air Squadron and said, hey guys, we have one of your B-17s here, and we don't know where your crew's at. What's going on? They were like, oh, well, the crew's here. What? What do you mean the crew's there? And he says, we have their logbook, said they bailed out. At least one of them was badly injured, according to the captain's log. He was like, no, they're all here, they're all fine. But they did bail out. Now, it turns out that the captain of that B-17 was a man named Harold R. DeBolt, D-E-B-O-L-T, all right? And Mr. DeBolt said flat out that as they took off from England to go on a bombing mission to bomb some oil fields that were, of course, being, captured and used by Germany, that the plane instantly had problems. He said they couldn't gain altitude to get up to where they needed to be with the other aircraft. He said their bombing rack, so anything that held their ordnance to drop, was malfunctioning. On top of all this, he said that once they couldn't get up to altitude and they were going forward, their number 3 engine went out. And so they're flying with 3 engines below altitude, and then they started being shot at by the Germans. And of course, at this point in time, a second engine went out due to damage to the craft from the German fire, from the anti-aircraft fire. So at this point in time, Harold DeBolt ordered his men to abandon the aircraft and to bail out. He knew that this aircraft wouldn't make it back to England. And so what he did was he put coordinates in the aircraft for Brussels. But this makes no sense, guys, because Major Crisp is now like, well, look, there's 12 chutes inside the plane. Now, I don't know Patrick, I don't know if they packed 22 parachutes inside of a B-17 Flying Fortress. Maybe they did. I don't know. If you know, leave that in the comment section below. Because it makes no sense that there are 12 working parachutes inside of this aircraft while 10 men bailed out. I don't understand. Another mystery behind it is that the captain's log stated that one of the crew member, at least one of the crew member, were badly wounded. Yet all the crew members are completely fine and they're right there. They're back at base in England. 2, if they bailed out behind enemy lines while they were on a bombing mission, because remember, they're being shot at by Germans, which means that the Germans are on the ground and these guys are jumping out of their aircraft, so the chances of them being captured by Germans is extremely high. So how did all 10 men, and they all 10 did, successfully navigate their way back to not only Allied captured ground and territories, but back to their air base that they had flown from, which had to be at least, 50, 60 miles away? I don't know. I do know this. They did interview. All this is a matter of record, guys, because this is military, and they do keep records of this. And so Harold DeBolt went on record as saying that this is what happened. That he lost 2 engines, that the bombing rack was malfunctioning, that they had no choice but to abandon ship or abandon aircraft, and he set the coordinates for the autopilot to Brussels. Now, this plane did have autopilot, so maybe, just maybe, it landing on its own is possible. And this isn't the only incident in the history of World War II where a plane did make it somewhere on autopilot. But this is the only plane that successfully landed. Who put down the landing gear? That's another mystery. I mean, there's so many things that make no sense with this thing. So either something truly strange is happening, or The U.S. government's lying about something and covering it up, which wouldn't be the first time. But ultimately, to have a plane fly, turn around from its bombing run, lose its crew, and then successfully land in Belgium. So how did this happen? I would love to hear what you think happened on this aircraft. Leave me something in the comment section below. Thank you all for watching so much. That's all I got today. If you're new to the channel, I hope you subscribe and keep coming back. I'm going to be talking about all kinds of things, all kinds of mysteries, things that are dark, strange, macabre. I have some true crime coming up soon that we're going to discuss, and amongst more missing person cases. And regardless of whether you're new to the channel or you're been here for a while and subscribed, guys, make sure you click that bell, get the notifications, keep coming back and hanging out with me. That way, also, if you click the bell, you can decide to watch or decide not to watch. And that's the most important thing. Take destiny into your own hands, guys. Don't let the YouTube algorithm decide what you watch. Click the bell. Then you can make up your own mind for yourself. And that is super important. And last but not least, if you've been here this long, guys, and you did love this video, like this video, enjoy this video, turn it blue for me. Hit that thumbs up button, guys. It lets me know you're enjoying the content, which is the most important thing for me. But it also lets YouTube know that you're enjoying the content, and that'll help this channel grow. And Lord knows, Patrick needs all the help he can get. But that's it for Patrick today, guys. I'm out of here, and I will see you guys in the next video.